Chapter 3. The orc infestation did not take long to begin seeping into more than just the mire. Certainly it started there, but orcs do not wait for extended periods to start exploring other territories. Scouting parties of orcs began appearing in other parts of Heathmoore to better explore and understand their foes. Say what you will of orcs, and granted there is much to say, but they are born with a natural affinity for war and battle. They learn from their enemies, adopt new battle weapons, strategies, and armor to better themselves, and yearn to be unrivaled on the fields of battle. But this all proves to be rather superfluous, as the common orc war tactic is simply to make mad charges at the enemy. Were it not for their resilient physiology, they'd certainly be an easy race to extinguish. Nevertheless, other factions around Heathmoore began to feel the weight of the orc invasion, some without even realizing it. And for a clear example, I offer this journal entry from the logs of one William of Oxshire. Oxshire is a small region located due south of Valkenheim, but near the northern edge of Ashfeld. William was a warden who was born and raised there. Wardens are a unique breed of warrior in the world of Heathmoore. As I stated previously, the knights hold specific codes of conduct and chivalry, but wardens take oaths higher still. They are specialists in longsword combat and wear highly balanced plate mail armor into battle. They carry a high sense of duty and valor with them, not unlike an Astartes. Indeed, it could be said that wardens are a diamond in the rough, even among knightly warriors. William of Oxshire was no exception. Only 26 at the time of this journal entry, he had already earned a name for himself in the Iron Legion. This journal was written a few days after his brief return to his home of Oxshire. What he found there, well, I will leave for him to tell you. From Entry 31, Returning Home, from the Journal of William of Oxshire. I hesitate to recount the memories of my return to Oxshire. I had been sent back home after suffering a wound in battle near the mire, where Derek of Foldmarsh continued his campaign against Don Yoku and its pompous daimyo. As I rode home, my steed and I both weary from the journey. A sense of foreboding washed over me. I knew something felt wrong, but I could not place it. But as I got further up the road, I noticed that the sky seemed somehow dark, and yet it was still the middle of the afternoon. The sun forbore to shine in joy and happiness, but rather great clouds of darkness seemed to snuff it. These were not natural clouds. They were great columns of smoke that only now did I notice to my ceaseless terror were coming from my hometown of Oxshire. I recall the smell of burning flesh, the putrid odor of death, and the reverberation of screams and crying all around me. I kicked my horse harder into a gallop to get over the hill line and see for myself what waited me. The cold air bit my skin as I raced down to see what I dreaded not to. The flames like fingers from hell rose up, clutching at the wooden houses and farmsteads. The small castle that belonged to the local governor was ablaze, and the drawbridge that would allow one to evacuate was decimated, left to nothing but kindling. I stumbled unceremoniously off my steed, devastated, horrified, and as I did so, a few of the townsfolk, men and women alike, I'd known since childhood, ran to me with sobbing, puffy eyes and wailing cries for mercy and for aid. One woman I remember with great disdain was carrying the dead body of a 4-year-old boy, a savage gash across his shoulder and down his chest so he was nearly split in two. Their cries filled my ears and my very soul. "What did this?" I demanded. "What demon brought this on our home?" I had wanted this answer to be a demon, a wretched monster of the darkest abyss that I would gladly smite in vengeance. But the answer was not a demon. It was no dragon or great leviathan for me to hunt. Rather, the answer was an all too simple one that I had, again, not wanted to hear. "Vikings!" one old man sobbed. "A Viking raiding party! They bore the colors of Hrafnfell! It was the Hrafnfell raiders!" Another shouted, anger hidden poorly behind his moans and cries. Parched lips and scorched tongues took up the cry. Hrafnfell. Hrafnfell Vikings had done this. Editorial note. Hrafnfell is the name of a Viking stronghold due north of Oxshire. It's a riverfront fortification that has a long-standing rivalry with Oxshire. The Jarl Reynald, had in the past formed peaceful agreements with the people of Akshire so as not to be locked in endless conflict with them. This attack by Hrafnfell Vikings would be not only a breach in the peace agreements between their two towns, but nothing short of an unprovocated act of barbarism. In some cases of war, commendable, but to the oaths and expectations of a warden, nothing short of reprehensible.
"When did they come?"
I asked, fury rising in my breast. The answers were hard to decipher through their shouts and groans of pain and anguish, but through the constant cries of agony I was able to figure out that they had come 2 days ago, slaughtered man, woman, and child, took a few hostage, and began to pull out of Akshire after setting fire to everything they could. As I walked through the mob of distressed people, I tuned out their pleas and overlooked the destruction caused by our neighbors, and the rage in my heart grew to an inferno.
"Where were the Iron Legion soldiers?"
I demanded after a moment. As a warden of the Iron Legion, my home was entitled to their protection while I was absent. As I looked around the destruction, however, I saw no bodies of knights, no dead warriors of the Iron Legion. Where were the defenders?
"None came. All are at Donyoku,"
a few of the villagers answered me. As I write this log, I still feel the bloody marks I left in my own fist as I squeezed my hand so fiercely, and I threw off my helmet, fell to my knees, and roared to the heavens, "Damn you, Derek of Faldmarsh! To hell with you, and to hell with the Iron Legion! To hell with Hrafnfell and his false ideals of peace!" I slammed my fist to the ground, kicked up ash and bloody dust around my face. My people, the citizens of Akshire, all wailed with me in shared lamentation. Note: several paragraphs about lamentation and curses have been omitted. Frankly, William's diction is quite detailed but incredibly depressing in this journal entry. I'm sure my fellow inquisitors will thank me.
When the night had finally fallen and the weeping had ceased from my chest, I felt the ash beneath me and swore an oath of vengeance. I would have my revenge for my people and for the dead. "Gather the bodies, allow the ashes to settle, and then gather the dead," I instructed to the civilians. None retorted or argued, but nodded their understanding. "I must leave at once." "Where do you ride, sire?" an old priest asked, reaching out with a burned, sickly hand to me. I took it, shook it, and then picked up my helmet that an elderly woman held out to me. "I ride to the neighboring villages of Ashfeld, to our allies of the Royal Legions, and further still. I will not let this act of war go unanswered, but I will not seek help from the Iron Legion. Their word is forfeit, and their honor is dead." "The other legions may not come, my lord," a few pointed out as I marched to my horse. I took the concerns onto my own, but only allowed the words to fuel the anger within me. "Then I will forge my own," I shouted. "I shall gather and rally knights like unto me, allies young and old. We shall not be idle while these savages rape our lands and pillage from our people. I ride, mend the wounds of this barbarism, and I shall see to it that the ones responsible pay in blood." And with these words did I ride, west to the further reaches of Ashfeld. There would I seek my allies and friends to join me in this quest. I know not what I will find of this raiding band of Vikings, but I will chase them all the way to Hrafnfell if necessary. In fact, it was not necessary. When William of Akshire informed his neighbors and fellow wardens of what happened, many pledged their swords to him instantly. Though the Royal Legion, Regal Legion, and Granite Legions refused to offer their full support to his crusade, many knights left their former legions to join William's, fearing the thought of more Viking raids in the future. Thus, a legion was slowly being formed, and we have an account of what happened from a first-hand source, which I managed to salvage from the archives of the Hrafnfell Library. The Vikings, as a whole, were not exactly interested in logging all of their history, but Hrafnfell was a special case. Citizens of Hrafnfell seem to take some pride in actually documenting oral anecdotes and instances they found of great worth, and this is one such instance. From An Eagle's Wrath, an oral report from Doran the Berserker. "It was a massacre. The night was fading into the dawn, and only 3 of our number stood awake, including myself. The others of our raiding party slept, all 30 of us, led by the Jarl's own mighty seed. We had dealt a crippling blow to the traitorous knights of Akshire, paying them back for their carnage they reaped upon us only less than a fortnight ago. With us, we had at least 12 women and children in chains that we had taken from Akshire. They cried like wounded sheep, begging for freedom and water, claiming to know nothing of the sins their people committed against us. Their lies fell on unwavering ears. Too recently had the blood of my brothers and sisters fallen upon the snows of Hrafnfell for me to believe their wanton lies. And as the dawn began to break over the hills, I remembered the sound of a horn, and then a figure strode upon the hill, abroad a steed of white and black. He wore the armor of a warden, and in one hand a long sword, in the other a banner with an emblem on it I had never seen before. As he glared down at me from behind his helmet, more warriors on horseback began to appear around him, a force of nearly 80 steel-clad warriors. "To arms!" I cried. "Rise! The knights are upon us!" "Who?" Yelda demanded, grabbing her own axe and quickly running to my side. I tell you now, I still did not recognize the emblem. I knew not who they were, but I knew this. They sought our blood, and their rage left ours to be wanting. "There lies the enemy," the warden roared to his kin. "Send these dogs back to their master, and make them heel. Leave not one of these heathen savages standing before you. Show them the fury of Akshire, and the rage of the noble legion." And all else is a blur to me, as the gates of hell opened, and the new noble legion fell upon us like angels of judgment. Their colors were blue and silver. Their spirit was the eagle. Their blades like talons ripped through us as cleanly as cutting hair with a knife. Only Yilda, myself, and 4 others escaped. But I tell you the truth, my Jarl. Had they wished it, they could have killed us all. My Jarl Reynald, forgive us, and forgive us our failings.
This oral report was given by the Berserker after having returned from the wilds with his band of raiders and warriors. Their leader, Yilda, was the Jarl's own daughter. She did not give the report herself to her father because she was terrified of being before him. See, he had not ordered her to go on this raid in the first place. In fact, the actions taken by Yilda and her brethren were completely of her own accord and greatly angered her father. Based on reports, logs, and journals that I've scrounged up, it seems that various grain storages and farming territories around Hrafnfell had been sieged and decimated by an unknown force. Yilda, believing it to be work of the knights, led a party of her brethren to get vengeance on Akshire, which was the nearest target to strike. Reynald, her father and Jarl, had never suspected the knights, having always believed that there was more to this savagery than he was seeing. And he was right, of course, but he wouldn't learn how right for some time. He would be too busy being preoccupied trying to clean up his daughter's mess. In the end, though, if I may insert some personal opinion on this, I would say Yilda's actions might have been for the better. Her haste to get vengeance had led to William of Akshire taking it upon himself to create the new noble legion, which would become an invaluable fighting force in the battle soon to come. And having christened their new legion's fighting strength upon the Vikings of Hrafnfell, they would need to ready themselves for an even more grievous and dangerous foe that was coming towards them next.